this kind of cybersecurity issues to the fore so that people can learn. In terms of public agenda setting, we need the press, the media. They are very important. Because once the media don't be the authoritative source for information, then a lot of information are going to be flying in cyberspace, especially now that we have social media, where it will be predominantly dictated by intellectual technicians. And when information are disseminated by intellectual technicians, it is very dangerous for society because they'll be distributing incorrect information. And for you to say whether 5G will have effect on health or not, that needs to be communicated by experts. But why was that question not asked when we have 2G, when we have 2.5G, EPRS, when we have 3G, when we have 4G? Why was there not that conspiracy that it has issue on health? Then many of the people that are laying this claim, they don't even understand the physics behind the 5G technology. Did they really understand, let's say, for example, the provisions, whether theoretically or in terms of use case and application of mass equation? Talk less of its impact when it comes to frequency, spectrum management and all those things. So if they don't have this understanding, then on what basis are they even trying to communicate something to the public in the first instance? But as a professional, for the question you have directed to me, the answer is no. Because even though it requires a lot of infrastructures in terms of antenna designs, in terms of the coding systems, in terms of the radioactivities and many things that is involved there, that wouldn't be it, because is it an ionized frequency range, like when we have our gamma ray and X-ray? So if within that realm, and we are just using the frequency that we are using for other kind of communication before to deploy for this purpose, because we are going to the eras of Internet of Things, where there will be matching-to-matching communications and happy emergencies. We are going to deploy a whole lot of, billions of devices are going to be talking. So it is 5G technology that will allow that to be able to happen. So,
okay, thank you, Chief. Yes, the radio waves has some impact, health impacts. So it depends on the range. It's a conspiracy theory. I think people have to prove whether there is a kind of safety issues or not, and that can be determined by extensive research in that area when the 5G is actually fully deployed. When we look at 5G also, one of the promises of 5G is greater connectivity. So we're going to be seeing, probably you have electronic digital cars that come into a city. You need to be able to connect maybe with city cameras to be able to interact, to be able to share information, both safety and security information. So this greater connectivity comes also with a sort of a threat. And so, and people have said so much about digital trust. And so we have some extensive digital trust when devices from different autonomous groups have to cooperate together to be able to perform a certain function. So, Engineer Egul, what do you think which will be issues in the digital trust?
Thank you very much. For, like some of the speakers have already mentioned, for 2G, 3G, because of the huge functionalities and the advantages that 5G brings, especially with respect to increased capacity, lower latency, and IoT, that massive machine-type communication that is possible. The attack vector actually increases a lot. And I think you made comments based on that. And that would, the impact that has is the fact that as we transit to a full digital society, where the importance of devices becomes very crucial to everyday life, then having that digital trust in ensuring that whatever communication that is sent from those devices can be trusted becomes very critical. And that's one of the critical issues why, based on looking at the various perspectives for security for 5G, we need to make sure that we are looking at it from different perspectives because of the wide area of impact. So you have the user perspective, you have the organizations, you have even the network, you have the supply chain, because the criticality or the safety for the whole network is dependent on the weakest link in the supply chain. So you mentioned the Internet of Things a minute ago. If you have an untrusted partner manufacturing or making some of those IoT devices, then that may become an entry point towards getting access to the overall network and causing damage. So the criticality of ensuring not just that devices are actually safe individually, but making sure that those that actually even make those devices are also trustworthy is very, very important.
Thank you very much. I wonder if Dr. Kenneth Okorafor is online. Can you hear us, Dr. Kenneth?
Yeah, very loud and clear. I can hear you. Good afternoon, sir.
Okay. Oh, that's fantastic. Okay. When we look at the threat landscape, we can see there are three major layers. We have the infrastructure layer, we have the connectivity layer, we have device and application layer. These three major layers have their potential threats to how we use 5G. Of which of these layers do you think we need greater investment to be able to benefit, from 5G digital economy?
Oh, thank you so much for the question, and I'm glad to participate in this. Now, investment in security is very, very important for all the layers. However, at the infrastructure level, it is very, very critical to have a robust set of facilities to be able to take care of the enlarged attack surface as a result of 5G. Don't also forget that because 5G promises greater speed and low latency, it increases the attack surface. And therefore, when you consider things like Internet of Things, which is one of the benefits of 5G, you now want to put in a lot of investment in ensuring that infrastructure is well optimized. And part of the ways to achieve this, of course, will be through regulatory framework. And NCC, of course, is doing a lot of work on this. And by the way, the cybersecurity policy and strategy framework is also a very good reference point to ensure that the infrastructure requirements for cybersecurity are put in place to be able to reap the full benefits of 5G. Having said this, I really want to add my voice to the issue of conspiracy theory concerning 5G. Don't forget that in 1903, when the Wright brothers came up with the idea of the airplane, there were a lot of theories. They were discouraged. One of the theories was that if humans fly after a certain altitude, that their blood will clot. But today, the rest is history. And therefore, it was really expected at this point that there would be a lot of conspiracy theories against 5G. One of them is the fact that there are health implications. Don't forget that the spectrum or the frequency range within which 5G technology is implemented is not within the ionization zone. So what that means is that the frequency is not capable of harming humans. And by the way, the International Telecommunication Union has also specified regulations, recommendations, and standards that must be followed by both regulators and vendors in order to ensure compliance with the implementation of 5G.
Thank you, Dr. Okorafor, for that exposition. Let's go back to one of the worries of 5G, like a lot of people have said, is with the increased data connectivity, privacy and intellectual data at risk. So how do you think, with a lot of home automation, industry automation, how do you think that privacy issues with 5G will be very, very impactful to the citizens?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello? Okay, thank you very much. This is where education is very important. We undermine the importance of education and being informed. A lot of people that are going to be using this technology are not informed of what they are into. And that is where we must start from. For example, when we talk about infrastructure, we should know that infrastructure comprises of not just the network or the physical devices, but even processes, procedures, people that can carry out social engineering in the aspect are involved to application layer are involved end to end. So the users that want to have their data private and protected must understand clearly what is happening in this space. However they acquire the education, whether through formal education, through informal education, or not formal education, they need to be informed. That will help them to be able to do a lot of things. Take, for example, there is need for people to understand. Now, let me talk about the service provider so that the users cannot benefit from it. We need to have an effective public key infrastructure, which today is lacking. Because when you have an effective public key infrastructure, it means the sender and receiver of information can communicate without a third party being able to, delve into that communication. Today, this aspect is lacking. Once you have that, it means if my fridge wants to place an order, then it can place the order directly in a secured manner without a third party being able to get engaged. Then two, we have the blockchain technology, which is available now. So the blockchain technology could be public or it could be private. People again need to understand this because you can set up your own domestic blockchain network that all your devices, no matter how complex they are on that network, depending on the kind of protocol you choose to communicate with other networks. So if you do that, you will be able to ensure that only the information or your entities within your network that you want to participate in something can participate. But at the government level, government is doing a lot. I've talked about data protection regulation. We have the cybercrime provision.
Chief, let me just interject there.
Yeah.
What we're talking about is this: how can with the home automation, there's a lot of privacy issues when we have our fridges, a lot of things connected. How will the end user, how will the privacy be protected? You have cameras that are connected. You have smart meters that are connected. You have even your toothbrushes that are connected.
Yes.
Whose is the responsibility to protect users' privacy? That's
what I'm saying. That's why I started by talking about education. You have both the user himself and also the government, which is doing through the agency to ensure that that infrastructure that will allow that to happen is there. Each of those devices will make use of IP version 6. So how you are going to utilize the IP version 6, that particular users must know about it. Let us say what we have today, the IP version 4. You have public IP and you have private IPs. If I'm going to network all the devices in my environment to be able to do and protect my privacy, then I must know about the things I am doing. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of exposure of your private information.
We're running out of time. Engineer Ogo, there is this issue of compatibility with 3G and 4G. And that also brings a kind of what they call the downgrading attack that can actually be able to harm the users. Now, seeing that this 5G rollout may not scale to the remote environment, how do you think this sort of attack will impact the users?
Yeah, thank you very much. Between 3G and 4G, basically, it's not like they are not interoperable. They are actually, but the major thing that is stopping a lot of people from moving from 3G to 4G is the device capability. So if you have, for example, a 3G device that is not 4G capable, obviously you are not able to go to 4G. But let's assume that you have a 4G device, 4G capable device, as well as the 4G capable SIM deployed in that device. So we're able to move from 4G back down to 3G to 2G as the case may be. The attack areas for that is actually very, very similar, though it's a bit wider for 4G due to the fact that we are able to do much more faster speed and much more bigger capacities. Going down to 3G, the technologies actually utilized for 3G services deployment is mostly, yes, it's standardized, but it's not technologies that is used across the industry. For example, like the IT based TCP, for example, it's not exactly that way. So different vendors have different deployment, different ways of deploying it. Now, if you move that into 5G, or for 5G, what 5G basically try to do also is to adopt some of those industry-leading technologies, virtualization, cloudification, network function, virtualization, and all the other type of technologies that they've incorporated into it. So that actually for 5G even makes it a bit, increases both the attack surface as well as the number of people that may be able to go in there. And that's why the criticality of putting in place the necessary frameworks, assessing the whole 5G ecosystem, looking at it from a national perspective. And that's why the strategy that we have in Nigeria and the sectoral areas are actually very important. And the fact that NCC, for example, is also developing those strategies, trying to be proactive to make sure that we look at not just how the 3G and 4G are being protected today, but look at the new ways that and the new things that needs to be done and the framework that needs to be in place to protect the various aspects for 5G, because 5G deployment has different areas depending on the use cases, so like 4G, 3G, where the use case is, you have one use case and you can use that to do so many other things. But for 5G, you could actually tailor it to say, I want to use this particular, I want to support health-related issues. So you are looking at URLs, ultra reliable, low latency communication, or you are looking at doing big broadband and supporting AR, VR. So you are looking at their high broadband and high capacity, or you are looking at supporting millions of devices. In that way, you are looking at IoT, massive machine type communication. So, and the type of security measures you put in place for each of these use cases is actually different, and how you secure them is different. So again, there's no one size fits all in how you protect your infrastructure. Is depending on the use cases that you actually look at, that you determine how you protect those areas.
Thank you very much. I think because of a want of time, you agree with me that the panelists here, they have done justice to this conversation. So our take home from this conversation is the fact that 5G presents huge vulnerability opportunities, and it has also going to increase attack surface. So the benefits and the gains from legitimate use of 5G will also amplify how malicious parties also use it. So what is advantage to an end user in terms of benefits is also advantage to the malicious parties who will actually use it in other ways to advance their mission. And so what is important we take home is that this actually entails that we need greater knowledge and the tools to be able to deal with emerging threats. And we have to also increase the pool of cybersecurity experts that has to deal with security in this area. Digital trust has been echoed several times. And so digital trust is also very, very important. And of course, research and development will continue to be a stimulant for technology advancement in the cyberspace. And any country that actually does not spend much in research and development will pay at their own leisure. Also with this, I want to thank the audience and also my panelists for this wonderful time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your very wonderful moderation. And then for the discussion, we know that the panelists have done justice to this, and we just want to ask that we give them a round of applause once more. Thank you. You may join the plenary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, just yeah, for photograph, and then you may proceed to join the plenary. May I just announce while the photo session for the panelists is ongoing, that the session we have, which is going to be a break kind of between the panels and the concluding panel sessions. In fact, we have 4 panel sessions. We've taken 2. Now we're going to take a session now before we return to do panel session 3, and then of course the breakout session for number 4, which will be the final. This particular session, which is NCC CSAT Consultative Forum, is going to be moderated by Interglobal, which is one of NCC's partners, and the NCC CSAT, which of course you listen to Brigadier General from Office of the National Security Advisor say that that's a sectoral intervention in that regard. That NCC CSAT, which was commissioned not too long ago, we'll take an overview and operational status of it, and that will be done by Malam Nuru Mohammed, who is the managing director of Interglobal Limited. Please come up, sir. Put your hands together for him. So he's going to moderate that session, and I will hand over to him shortly. The session will not take more than maybe 25, 30 minutes max. Now, on that particular panel, we will have 2 international participants who are connected virtually. The first is Haitham Elman, who is the CEO of Keystone Group, the CSAT of Tunisia. So he will be linking up from Tunisia. And then the second person is Professor Benoit Morel, who is in Carnegie Mellon University in the United States. They are both online and connected. So we'll be taking their contribution, which will be moderated by Malam Nurumo. I put them together, gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, kindly allow me to stand on existing protocols. If we can put up the slide that I have, but we'll try and skip through some of them so that we are able to run through as fast as possible. I would like to apologize to Haitham and Professor Morel that we took so long. They have been online since and trying to connect to us. Professor Morel has been awake since 5 a.m. in Chicago time. It's like it's been on for like 6 hours now, and it's just coming on. What we're talking about is I'm just trying to update the telecoms operators that are here about what NCC has done so far. NCC have set up an NCC CSAT, that's a sectoral SAT that is going to take care of only the telecom sector. Now, the national policy on cybersecurity and strategy, the policy and strategy says that each sector should have its own SAT that will take care of its constituents. What NCC has gone ahead and done is to set up its own CSAT that will take care of the telecom sector. Now, a lot of you have been with us. We had one stakeholders forum, I think 2 years ago. It was the end of 2018. We had another stakeholders forum in January or February 2019. A lot of you were with us. That stakeholders forum. Okay, no. Okay, can we go to the next slide? Okay, can you please go back one? Okay, good. We've already set up the NCC CSAT, and the NCC CSAT has 4 units in it: the alert and warning unit, the monitoring unit, incident handling unit, and the communications unit. That is already set up and it's working. Next slide. We can jump to the next one. This is not really. Next one, please. Okay, good. We went through a very important assignment with the stakeholders in this thing, in that we asked about 35 telcos, from the MNOs to small-time operators like Value. Okay. like vast value-added providers to answer a questionnaire that we gave them to show us their readiness, cyber readiness, and how they are handling their cybersecurity issues. We got responses from most of them, and the biggest take from this was we put into a capability maturity model. This was developed by Carnegie Mellon University, and we asked them basically 5 basic questions about their cybersecurity policy and strategy, cyber culture, the cyber education, legal and regulatory frameworks that they're following, standards that they are following in these matters. What we came up with is that most of what is happening within the telco sector is in the startup and formative nature, but you have a lot of education in this sector. If you put that into the eventual model that Carnegie Mellon came up with, you will see that the blue circle is where the Nigerian telecom industry is. The orange circle will be your perfect where you are. So you can see that we are only at level 1 in most of the cases, but we are at level 3 in cybersecurity education. We have quite a lot of educated people in cybersecurity within the industry, but cyber culture is not really practiced within the industry per se. 2 or 3 of the MNOs, believe me, are beyond what all of us think of. But you will find small-term operators where they cannot actually afford to say they have a whole cybersecurity department or person. So you have one person in IT department, he has a laptop that he checks on them, and then he has other duties that he's doing. So those are the kind of things. Now the NCC is that it's supposed to be a link between these big-time operators and the small-time operators. You can get things, cyber attacks happening on telecom infrastructures, but these small-time operators will not be able to say what is happening. So the NCCs that will link up with the small-time operators and give them updates as to this is what is going on, these are the vulnerabilities that are available, and how you can overcome them, and things like that. We've tried to very fast and go over some things that we've done. Now, the last one, the modalities that we did, we have an alert and warning services that will be offered to constituents as and when due. So within the CSAT, they will continue to do vulnerability analysis and research on what is going on around the world, and they will be reporting it to their constituents. They will be announcing to their constituents all the new developments and what impact they will have on you as of now or long-term user. Incident handling will be handled in a triage manner, in the sense that within them, they will be categorized and then assigned to incident analysis who resolve them and hand them over to it. The NCC CSAT will be contacting other CSATs as and when due, and will announce to its constituents what is happening. The most important thing is that it could notice something's happening in other industries, which it will then hand over to NGSAT. It's only NGSAT that is allowed to talk to other industries. Because, for example, now you have a financial sector CSAT, more so by Cyberdome for CBN. So NCC CSAT will not be able to say that you're talking to a bank that you notice that there are some vulnerabilities that you're doing. They will tell the CBN, and they will be able to now talk to their own constituents. And that's how it should be done. And that's just what the national policy says, how it should be done. Went past, I'm not on this. The incident reporting methodologies, they will communicate to you, Mrs. Ebemelu, if she'll be handling that later on towards the end of this session. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Haitham Elmir. Mr. Haitham Elmir was one of the founders of the institution that, sorry, he's the CEO of Keystone Group now, which is a company that handles cybersecurity issues within Tunisia. He's recently set up the financial sector for Tunisia. So we invited him so that he would just share with us a little bit of the insights of what he's done in setting up a sectoral CSAT and the kind of challenges that they've gone through. Are you there?
Yeah. Do you hear me?
Go ahead and we'll be
Yeah. Okay. I have some slides to share, so if you can give me the right to share my slides. Okay, so waiting for the slide. So as it was already presented, so I am very involved and engaged in developing CSIRT and CERT in Africa region, and now there is a big interest for developing sectorial CSIRT. So I had an experience, local experience in Tunisia, while setting up the search for the financial sector. So it was an occasion to discover the specificities of this sector and to have a better understanding how to set up and how to run successfully sectorial CSIRT. So in my presentation, I will focus more on the telecommunication CSIRT and the challenges that it will be faced for these CSIRT. This will be inspired from my experience with the financial CSIRT. So why sectorial CSIRT are so important? Because first of all, they can play a very key role in to be complementary to national CSIRT. National CSIRT are generally the national coordinator, and now they are in need to have a partner to coordinate with, especially a partner representing different sectors. Sectoral CSIRT are very close to their environment and to their constituency. So they are supposed to have a better understanding of the threat landscapes, the technologies, and all the specificities for their sector, knowing that cyber threats differ from one sector to another. Yeah, it's true that we have common threats that we can observe everywhere, but for each sector, if we talk about the finance, telecommunication, government, they have their own threats based on their specificities, based on the technology they are using, and also on the culture, IT culture, and specific sector. So by focusing on the business and the technology specificities, the sectorial CSIRT can have a better visibility on threats and also can better and easily develop security requirements and assist constituencies to secure their environment. Need to collaborate, and they need to be part of the sectoral CSIRT. If we talk about the telecommunication sector, it's a very critical sector, and here this sector is very critical for the economy and for the society and also for the national security, but also it's very critical for all the other critical sectors. And generally companies from the same sector have similar architecture, they use similar technologies, and sometimes they have the same exposure to cyber threats. So same threats, vector also, and same adversary. Generally, when we identify adversaries like APT groups or cyber criminals, when they target one company in the sector, we have a big chance to find the same behavior and the same attacks and the same techniques used against So here to be able to ensure will face many challenges. The key challenges I have identified, the first one is information sharing about the sector among the sectors. So how to be able to bring all the operators and companies from the same sector to share informations, and generally those companies are competitors. So how to convince them, and what kind of tool and technology the CSIRT can put in place to push companies to share information for the benefits for all of them. Also, another challenge is the incident response, how to develop capacity in terms of cybersecurity, and also how to collaborate together to secure the infrastructure. When we talk about the telecommunication sector, it's a very specific sector, and what we find inside the telecommunication is very specific to this kind of environment. So generally, telecom operators are huge network a lot of perimeters, find some of the top of the technology and the information systems connected with some legacy systems. So really, it's very big mix, and this big mix makes the system sometimes very complex to manage, sometimes very exposed. And the fact to have this huge number of networks make it difficult for administrators and managers to be able to at least manage the system and to have control on the system. If you look to the slide, it's very nice network and very rich network, but sometimes it can look something like this, which make the job very complex and to have a good control. And with a weak control, with a weak management, here we will be very exposed and exposed to cyber threat and cyber attacks. So these networks are very distributed, generally non-segmented. They use multiple set of technologies. IP now is a must-have, because previously with the PSTN network or 2G network, we do not use a lot of IP, but now with the 3G, 4G, everything is converged by the IP. So when we say IP, we say more threats and more cyber attacks. This is some of the specificities of the network. We can have a look from another side. This is a slide that describes a little bit the technique and the network that we can find in operative telecommunication. A lot of, as I told you, a lot of vectors, a lot of technologies, a lot of networks, and the attacker can come from everywhere. Generally, we tend to focus on threats related to the information system, but when we talk about telecommunication network, so the information system is a small part from the network, but the biggest threat will come from other parts, like from the SS7 network, from the core network, mobile data, UTRAN network. Also, all these networks can be targeted by a specific cyber attack. So as I said, we can find usual attacks like malware, ransomware, phishing, web attack. But the biggest concern for telecom operator is the theft of confidential data related to the subscriber, the violation of the availability of the mobile network, which can cause a lot of financial loss, the fraud also, and also the legal compliance. So to resume the threats, we can have threats against subscribers or coming from subscribers. We can have threats targeting devices, mobile applications, also the radio network, the core network, the signaling network. All these parts can be targeted by cyber attacks. Some of the specificity of the telecom operator is that they have a big number of subscribers. Those subscribers are supposed to belong to the telecom operator, but those subscribers also can be a source of threat that can target the telecom operator. That's why dealing with this question needs a lot of collaboration and strong collaboration between the mobile operators, regulators, and also the CSIRT ecosystem. So if we come back to the challenges, as I said, the key one is information sharing, which is very important and fundamental things if we want to face cyber attack. So here, by sharing information between mobile operators, it will be very useful for other mobile operators to respond to cyber attack. Imagine that we are seeing an intrusion technique in a mobile network operator, and after that, the same technique is used in another mobile operator. So if mobile operator can share this information in a good time, so this will help others to secure their system in advance and to prevent a lot of loss. So here, why companies need to share information? So to increase cohesion. So this is have a positive effect on the community of telecommunication. To create common approach, so how to detect, how to describe cyber threat, how to create a model to detect cyber threat. Also increase networking and partnership among the community, and also can be useful to check attack and do some counter analysis if we detect some targeting attack or some specific attack targeting the whole sector. So here is some example that we can share. So sharing information is very important, but we will not share everything. We need to share attack against attack like ransomware intrusions, attack against the SS7 network, GTP/GRX attacks, physical attacks also. And here I gave you some example of the data that we can share that can be very useful for others to prevent attack. So this is one of the platforms that we have developed for the financial sector. Can be also very useful for the for the NCC CERT. So here we have many companies belonging to the sharing network, information sharing network. So once we detect an attack targeting the first company, the information will be shared through the information sharing platform. Then it will be sent to the CERT, to the CERT, superior CERT. It will be synchronized and shared with others. The other can collect the same information through the same platform, and this information can be correlated and integrated in the defense mechanism, so they can block automatically the attack. And now this is very useful because it helps the company to prevent attack and to be more proactive to detect and to neutralize attack before the impact happens. Another challenge is with capacity building. For example, in our case, in the financial CERT, we work a lot on training and technical workshops. We discuss about new threats, new attack techniques, we share best practices, we talk about security alerts, and we raise awareness not only with security people, but also with other employees from the sector. So we use a lot of cyber exercises for technical teams, for management, and also we use a lot of crisis simulations to train people to face cyber attack and to coordinate to face those incident response coordination. So this is a very because not very easy, and here the CERT have a lot of work to do. So here the key thing is to share information about the attack, to coordinate, to locate, track back the source of the attack, and also to coordinate in the investigations, to develop some guidelines and best practices how to respond to specific threats and specific attack. Also to coordinate with the national CERT and all other sectors, and also to by doing some cyber exercises to simulate some massive attack that can target the sector, and to see how the sector can coordinate to manage and to mitigate the attack. Securing the infrastructure also, this is something very useful to develop among the mobile operator to discuss about common issues and common interests. Today we have a lot of issues regarding 5G, SS7 security, Diametra. So how to protect, so we can share a lot of information. We are using all the same technologies like Huawei, Cisco, Ericsson. So how to deal with vendors, how to secure those technologies. This is also going to be a good subject to discuss and how to attack infrastructure. So all these concerns can be discussed among the sectorial CERT, and then we can bring all the operators to discuss and to come up with some recommendations, some best practices to apply on their network. We can also discuss GSMA recommendations and standards, ISO standards, NIST, and all other standards and best practices. So here, when it is discussed in the community, there is better added value and better return on the effort that will be made by the CSAT. Just to conclude, so these are the key challenges: sharing information among the operators, to coordinate to face massive attack, mainly to share information about the attack, to work together to develop capacities related to incident response, and also to identify and to work on best practices on how to secure the infrastructure. And this is, I think, the key challenges for the sector CERT to be able to help the community to respond to cyber attack, but also to be more preventive and proactive while detecting cyber threats. Okay, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Haitham. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, if not because of the short time spell that we would have had a very good discussion with the Haitham, especially the telecom operators. I'm sure all of you found what he was presenting very interesting. And sorry, the link was not very good, so you couldn't hear him very well. But at least the slides showed you the kind of things that you're thinking about. And of course, I wanted to highlight again that the NCC has a training facility in-house there, where it expects to, with time, further along the line, to start inviting people from different companies to come in for training in cybersecurity within their facility there. Eventually, they will get to that level, and that's part of the capacity building that Haitham was highlighting in his presentation. The next, I would like to call on Professor Morel. Professor Morel is a very interesting character. He's been very, very interested in Africa and African cybersecurity landscape. He was here with us between 2010 and 2012 when we were doing the NGSAT, and he participated a lot in it. He's been very interested in what was going on in the NCCC side, and we then asked him to be able to give us a small thing. Professor Merrill, we have, you are most welcome, and sorry for keeping you awake from 5 a.m. up to this time. He's in Chicago in the United States. So Merrill, you're welcome. And we have 10 minutes to do a small presentation to us. And
yes. Well, not sure about that. Do you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Very good. So I'm about to say, see, I understand you are short of time, and therefore I will not speak too much. I will, first of all, you had two extremely good presentations just before. The first one reminding me of the culture I represent here technically, Carnegie Mellon. The second one, it does somebody who I've known for years, in fact, Haytham, who I think arguably is the best expert in cybersecurity in Africa, that aspect of cybersecurity. So I'm happy to really convey the notion that I always admire when he sees the amount of information he submitted to in such a short time. It's obviously a little bit above what normal human beings can digest, but you understand the message, and I think that is one of the messages also I want to convey. We are not only interested to monitor you and impressed with what you're doing, but even anxious to contribute to the success of this. So cybersecurity is probably the most complex threat for modern societies. And it happened that in Africa, Nigeria is hands down and obviously the most important country for cybersecurity. And we, from outside of, one of the reasons we're interested in Africa, because problem can come from Africa for us, but Nigeria is certainly the source of problem, biggest of them all. So we're really interested and committed to see you. We're really delivering and making progress. And so you had one cert, NG cert, which in fact Haytham was already involved in the creation of that, which is a very beautiful success story. Reporting to National Security Advisor, we saw that from outside. It was one of the most brilliantly led search in Africa. It's only the Tunisian search is compared because it was there before. These guys have really succeeded in reaching a level of excellence, which is not so easy to emulate. But Nigeria, being the size of the country, the size of the economy, and the nature of the culture, in fact, is obviously a very important place. And that cert, NG cert, has made a big difference. But as Hassan suggested, see, it happens that cybersecurity is a threat which affects the different sectors of the economy differently. And it's very good that they try to collaborate to present a resilient structure, but fundamentally, what is true, the problem that the financial sector has to face, the telecommunication sector has to face, the energy sector is sometimes significantly different from each other. And that is when it's very nice to have a system, I would even call that an ecosystem of sectoral certs, which cooperate a little bit and do their stuff, but cooperate. And the result is to create this kind of system which works reasonably well in other countries. There is no question that sectoral certs de facto exist, not necessarily as deliberately built as it will be the case in Nigeria. We want to believe that the one NCC we see now, CCERT, will be only the first of several, exactly in the sense that you called already Haytham said. But you see, we'd like to also believe that we could do that with you. See, because you see, building a cert is not simple. To make a cert work and succeed is a challenge. And there is something to be said about the certs outside. There's other certs, the different nations, to help each other a little bit to kind of build this kind of strength in level of performance. So the reason why we like to make you realize, that's probably my message. I don't want to use all my 10 minutes because people are already saturated. My message would be that we take very seriously what you're doing in NCC. We want to help, and in the sense that if there is some resources we can provide for you, some kind of risk, whatever, we will do. That's for no question, but Hassan, me, and somebody wanted to come, and I could not because of a wedding, the stickboard, which is represent the first. The first is the Forum from Incident Response Teams, but it is also the is also the repository. First is the best repository of knowledge about cybersecurity, or that part of cybersecurity. And I think it's there's a big resource that we should benefit from, use. But in any case, having said that, I thank you for your attention also. I really strongly encourage you to go exactly the logic which has been defined by our chairman and also by Hassan.
Thank you very much, Professor Morel. The two takes that I take from what the two people said is the importance of information sharing. And what Professor Morel was just saying is that it's very easy to build a SAT, but to run a SAT is a very difficult part. And the only way you can run a SAT is with the input from the sector that you're dealing with. And we'll need a lot of input from the sector, from the telecom operators, for us to be able to run a successful SAT that will be of service to all of you. With that, I come to the end of my presentation, and Mrs. Epemelu, if she's close by, is going to close this with a little bit about what NCC is promising their constituents they're going to do, how you can contact the SAT that we've been talking about that is supposed to serve you all. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for sitting in and for accepting our invitations. The CSAT is just a component in the whole ecosystem of cybersecurity. We've taken the step to establish the CSAT in line with the provisions of the NCPS. But that's just the first step. The next step is working together. It's just like building a product and no one is buying your product. So our product is the CSAT, and it's tailored specifically for the telecommunications sector. However, to make this run, to get the CSAT up and running, we need a handshake, we need your collaboration, we need your support, we need your engagement, we need your buy-in, and we need your trust. We know we can't just get trust by just saying we need trust. And in line with that, the Commission is making steps, taking steps. One of the steps is to have operational independence. Operational independence in terms of devoid of any commercial, organizational, or political interests. We've said it, we'll work towards it and we'll keep working at it, but we need you to work with us in this. The next is to share information. I want to assure you that whatever information you share with us will be confidential, except you want us to share it with the constituency. The next. Then we need contacts from you, contact persons that are proactive and responsive, that will be willing to work with us, that have access to decision makers, so that when we get information and want to pass across to you, they will act responsive on the point. They will be responsive, quick to act, because cybersecurity is not a job for one person or one entity. We realize that each operator may have a similitude of the CERT or a SOC in place, but you're only as secure as the next network. So we need your hand. We need a collaborative alliance with every one of us, especially our sector, the sector we're providing service to. In that line, we would like to have phone numbers, email addresses, and names of maybe your CISOs or specific individuals who would man the CSAT function for your organization. Projected is our email address and the phone number. Details will be provided to the contacts you provide to us. I want to thank specifically the MNOs who have supported us and encouraged us in the establishment. I want to thank WinRock especially for their interventions, and CobraNet for their responsiveness. And we appreciate your ability to come today, but note one thing, the CSAT is just a building, a structure. For it to function, we need information. And we need you to trust that whatever you send to us will be handled confidentially. Thank you for coming, and have the rest a good lunch. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Ibemedu. God bless you for this. It's amazing. Thank you. Distinguished members of the board of the commission and our directors, gentlemen of the press, stakeholders. We will proceed. I'm sure you are noting your questions for all the presentations that we have taken because we'll come back to those questions. I just want us to move as promised, that we're going to move with speed and steadiness and accuracy. And so we would go straight to constitute the breakout session, the third one. Indeed, chronologically, it will be the fourth, but this is panel discussion 3. And may I invite my senior colleague, Dr. Chidi Diogu, Deputy Director, New Media and Information Security Department. Please, let's give him an applause. He is going to moderate the next session. And I'm inviting the panelists, our own Reverend Sunday Folayon. Please join him, sir. Can we put our hands together for Reverend Sunday Folayon? I had announced earlier that Mr. Kolu will represent Dr. Steve Bassi. Where is Mr. Kolu? Please put, can we encourage him to come up? Mr. Victor Emmanuel Kolu is representing Dr. Steve Bassi. Okay, thank you. It's right here. And then the third person in that panel is Mr. Adebi Oladipo. Thank you. Good to have you here. Please, let's put hands together for Mr. Oladipo. Please, just by way of recalling, the panel discussion is focused on critical communications infrastructure, supply chain, cybersecurity threat landscape. Again, I just remind the moderator, I know he's so conscious of time, always, and he works with precision, almost always. Dr. Diogu, you have 30 minutes, sir. You may proceed.
Thank you very much. In sympathy with our time, let me go straight to the point. Two things are very important here. One, critical infrastructure. Number two, supply chain. And in order to domesticate these two areas, we have to look inwards. Traditionally, telecoms operators are known to be landlords. In other words, if you recall in the days of Nitel, they were landlords. They owned all the strategic infrastructures, the microwave towers, the fiber, the optic fiber cable, and so on and so forth. And so for you to be able to interconnect with them, you have to be actually at their mercy. Now, with the liberalization of the market and the introduction of new entrants, you have now the decentralized industry in which you have strategic partners like IHS, Helios Towers, being able to provide infrastructures that provide corresponding services. Now, these infrastructures in so many ways do support supply chain management. By the way, supply chain has to do with planning, processing, and distribution of goods across different entities. And so today, from the regulatory point of view, and especially from the new media perspective, we want to bring critical infrastructures very close to supply chain with only one aim. First, to see how prepared are we to face the challenges of the new trade. And to do that, I welcome all the panelists. I will just give you a little bit insight, into what I will be looking at in this conversation. First, in a very elementary way, we're going to be defining infrastructure with respect to supply chain. Number two, we'll also rattle through what supply chain means in context. And then we're going to go and look at competition as key, and then how ready or how willing are the operators to share their infrastructures. We will also talk very briefly on how private-public partnership could enhance or implicate the realization of a very clean supply chain environment. So having said that, I would like to start first with the gentleman to my far right to please define for us critical infrastructures that are related to supply chain. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good afternoon, moderator. Critical infrastructure, we'll be looking at it from, let's start from the general perspective of what critical infrastructures are to a nation. When we talk about critical infrastructure, we're talking about those infrastructure that are very important or very key. They provide key services, key functions to a nation such that when they are not available, there could be huge consequences. And the consequences are described as huge because they could cascade, they could multiply in the course of the failure of the infrastructure. So context, as we look at it in the context of communication infrastructure, we, just like you said earlier in your background, the providers of communication infrastructure are the center of everything, especially in these days of digital days, where we are all depending on the digital infrastructure to do whatever we want to do. So in that context, when this fails, there could be a lot of issues. And then looking at it from the point of the supply chain ecosystem, at any point in the chain, we're calling it a chain because there are phases. At any point in the chain, when there is a failure, there could be also serious consequences, especially when a third party is several people depending on the third party, and then that third party happens to fail or be attacked. You know, the consequences will also spread across a lot of other dependent entities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Supply chain requires absolute visibility and traceability. Items moving in from one point to the other must be completely visible throughout the supply chain. And then they must be traceable. This means that the application of traceable devices like barcodes, RFID, and things like that are very key. However, to be able to tag an item, whether at pallet level or item level, requires a lot of security. And the security I'm talking about is being able to guard against malwares and ransomwares, viruses, and all sorts of imminent attacks. So could the gentleman in the middle please tell us how we can guard against these attacks within a supply chain network? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. My name is Reverend Sunday Folayan. A network is made up of so many things and so many players with different responsibilities. And it's good to see the types of compromises that have happened to understand the real danger that networks face. One of the celebrated cases in the last few months is that of an advanced persistent threat actor against a company that makes network management softwares. That company is called SolarWinds, and their network management software called Orion is used by over 30,000 companies, of which 5,000 of them are Fortune 5,000 companies in the US, the Department of Defense, as well as so many government agencies worldwide. And what happened? When a company makes a software, they push updates. So they push updates to the people that use their software. So the hackers actually hacked into the source code of Orion at SolarWinds, the company that wrote the code. And of course, the company pushed the updates, and the updates went to the 30,000 users who trust updates. How many times have you reviewed your Windows updates? And so they were able to get into all those companies. But the good news is that they got into the network of also a private company that was into security. And they were able to detect it and alert the US government. And of course, the private company has built capacity. So by working with the government, they were able to mitigate, well, respond, mitigate it has happened. They were able to respond and begin to clean out. But these threat actors are doing this as part of state espionage. So it's either they get you first, or you are also at the forefront making sure they don't get you. So it's really a challenge, and we need to deal with it.
Thank you very much. Technology diffusion requires our behavior. The way and manner we behave in adopting new technologies are key to their success. Today, we are talking so much and witnessing a lot of advancements in artificial intelligence, in big data, cloud computing, and so on and so forth. And now we know that to be able to transmit effective data rates, we need to have robust networks. And then to also talk about the emerging technologies, we are advancing towards the Internet of Things, which means that we're going to have a lot of devices connected and also interoperable amongst themselves. One of the key requirements from the electromagnetic point of view is that these devices must be compliant. The effective radiated power from each of the devices must be able to allow others to coexist, in the absence of which you have corrupted data. So based on this and looking at our ethical revolution, how will you comment on our readiness to adopt new technologies that will enhance supply chain?
Okay, good. It's afternoon now, everyone. Okay, my name is B. Oladipo. How ready are we as a nation or as individuals? Actually depends on the availability of the technologies that we have. And if you know the technology industry so well, things move very fast. And with the rapid changes, which in most cases is actually driven not just by what the technology actors are bringing, but more by the demands of what people really want and the kind of things that people want to do. You've mentioned the Internet of Things. What the requirement of Internet of Things is not just because people just feel that let's connect all the devices and the different things, but it's because a lot of us are looking for more convenient ways of doing things. And because these things are coming up, it's more important to now say, okay, so what are the kind of things that we're bringing to the table? But with all of this, vulnerabilities become a major point of things. So how do we ensure that we safeguard the devices that we're connecting to themselves or connecting to the internet? This becomes a major question which needs to be answered and needs to be answered by all of us. A major part of this is the individuals who are connecting to the internet or the individuals who are connecting devices to themselves. What exactly do you want to do with the devices? And you yourself, what sort of information are you allowing the devices to have? So these are personal questions, and it also has indications or implications for on a national or a global national and global basis. But the most important thing is to ask ourselves, what are the frameworks that we have in order for us to ensure that the vulnerabilities are detected and the vulnerabilities are blocked?
Please just remain with that question, because you are actually saying something that is very important. And you are alluding to the question I was going to ask last month. Let me just still keep you there.
Please.
To discuss the human capital infrastructure requirements in addressing our infrastructure deficit. Now, when I discuss or mention human capital infrastructure, I will put in the same basket training and upskilling our citizens to be able to cope with the emerging trend.
Okay. A lot of discussions have gone, especially in Nigeria, on things around digital literacy and how ready we are for some of the things that we're seeing. However, my question usually has been, what policies have we put in place in order for us to ensure that we don't just dump devices and things in people's hands, but to ensure that the people know how to use the devices and how to ensure that the devices are used responsibly. Now, I say responsibly because we've heard stories of how people use, identity theft, different kind of things, cyber frauds and all of that. And that's why I use the word responsibly. How have we educated people on ensuring that they make sure that the devices are used in such a way that they are productive and not counterproductive? But this all borders on the policies that we put in as a nation to ensure that things are done correctly. Well, policies on the one side, implementation on the other. One of the panels that left, someone had actually mentioned the case of ensuring that we identify the people who are using specific devices. And the question is, how ready are we? Who is going to be in charge of that? Who's going to be in charge of the implementations to ensure that devices are used correctly, devices are used responsibly, and then we avoid having vulnerabilities based on the usage of devices?
Thank you very much. We have less than 10 minutes to wrap up. And within these 10 minutes, we're probably going to look at 2 more issues. And the next one has to do with data collection. Supply chain, obviously, supply chain management requires collection of huge data, that we today call big data. And the data we collect obviously will need to be stored securely. Now, talking about Nigeria as a case here, could someone just, in no particular order, comment on a very crucial infrastructure called power that is required to ensure that we are able to keep our data alive, secure, transparent, and readily available?
Okay. First of all, let us agree that lack of power is not a problem. Let's agree, and I will justify why I made such a broad statement. The United States government was funding the CIA, the FBI, the Joint Command and Control, and all their agencies secretly But today, they fund Google, they fund Facebook, they make life easy for them. If Facebook was a Nigerian company, it would have been shut down already for poor security architecture. But because when government needs to know who committed crime, they just need to look at their footprints on Facebook or Google. It is a well-funded intelligence machinery. And you and I submit our data to them readily to fund that machinery, and power is not a problem. So why is it a problem when we need to set up our own architecture to manage security? I'm saying that to provoke a conversation that where there is the need, there is a way. I'll pass.
Okay. I'm actually going to take off from where the Reverend stopped, which is, I also believe personally that power isn't a problem. Power isn't a problem because we have solved for it. Is the solution optimum? The answer is no. But the fact remains that we have solved for it in one way or the other. And how do we get all of the infrastructure that we currently have running? They are running one way or the other. And we've found a way of keeping them alive, whether we're looking at infrastructure around public power, we're looking at infrastructure around personal or private power generation, whether by using fossil fuel or we're using renewable energy, whichever way we have found in this room. I'm sure if we check people's bags, we will find one way or the other that we're keeping our devices alive. So all of that we have solved for. But the question now remains, what are we doing to ensure that the information that we are readily giving and readily placing in those data stores are information that we really want out there? Because I think that's a conversation that a better conversation that we should have, rather than how the power will affect keeping all of this critical infrastructure running. Thank you.
Yeah, I will go with my people on the panel and say that I think it's a matter of prioritization. We have not really prioritized that this data, we really want it kept at that national level and locally here, because just like we are saying, there are organizations here that are keeping huge data, and I think here too, especially if we look at the financial services sector, they have been in this arena for a very long time digitally and are keeping this data. So if organizations keeping that huge level of data can't keep it, then we should be able to warehouse our data locally if we want to, if we prioritize and say it is important, we want to do it.
Okay, so let us leave you with the comfort that you derive from the answers you've given, and the comfort zone which you have decided to take refuge in is that power is not a problem. I'm not allowed to have an opinion here. And because of that, I would like to go through one more question and then I'll be able to end. The man on the street for whom we are here making efforts to uplift pays a lot. If we add the cost of generating electricity to the cost of transporting bandwidth from Lagos to the hinterland, and then you add the cost of security and the cost of and other costs, okay? Not the least, talk about multiple taxes they have to pay across sites, and then you have to talk to different agencies, you know, in the name of multiple regulation and so on and so forth. So it's not the man is not really conscious of all these intricacies. He wants to get his services cheap. He wants his goods to be seen by every potential buyer across the globe. But somewhere along the line, his efforts have been limited. So here, on the scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is the highest, how will you assess? How will you assess and advise on existing policies and also development of future frameworks to be able to increase the visibility of the ordinary man who needs their goods to be supplied?
All right. I need to understand the question, sorry, within the framework of cybersecurity or e-commerce or efficiency. What are you driving at, Mr. Moderator?
Now, this is the way I look at cybersecurity. I don't want to go very far. Anything that prevents the provision of basic services, provision of internet services, provision of bandwidth commodities, to me is an attack. Okay, so I'm not defining attack here to be something that is like a pie in the sky. For me, it's an attack on a physical infrastructure. For example, you go and shut down a base station, for example.
Okay,
the base station is obviously it aids in propagating our signals. So it's an attack and it's a cybersecurity issue and must be addressed either through policy frameworks or through other means.
Okay, I have an understanding of what you're driving at. The first thing that we must note is that sometimes when we say there is a problem, all right, the problem in Nigeria, we don't take it as a problem until it is very glaring. So you have a former minister of works driving on a federal highway that was not fixed when he was honorable minister. And then he runs into a pothole and the Jeep, which he bought to be able to go in the bad roads, somersaults. And then suddenly we're in a situation of life and death. That's when the day you know the address of Caverton helicopters, who would have to go and evacuate the big man on the road and so on. You see, the ordinary man is comfortable without the demands that we place on them. It is because we want to be super efficient that we torture the ordinary man. And we need to put them into consideration in everything we do. I submit that it is unreasonable for a company to declare 70% profits when it could have plowed back 30% into building capacity to ensure. For example, there was a recent compromise where a Chinese company made a snooping chip and put it under the processor on the board they assembled. And the OEM did not know that they installed the chip under. What will it cost us as a nation to make chips? Nothing. The people sending rockets to space are not more intelligent than us. But do we consider it a risk we want to mitigate? Forgive me, I don't want to hog the bandwidth. Let others too talk.
Just 1 second, please. You can just, if you have anything to say, 1 second, we have less than 2 minutes to.
Okay, for me, it's more like we need a framework of what are the things that we want to drive as a country. Framework in the sense that whatever policies that come out, there are 3 actors that are involved. One is the government that bring up policies and things that people should do. Then also you have the private sector that actually goes and implements those policies. And then you have the people that are the end users of the policies. So for me, it's these three things. These three actors need to work together. So things should come from the point of view of how easy will it be for the man on the street to be able to utilize the services that we're bringing to bear? And that should cascade back to the kind of policies that we will bring to the fore in order for the people, the implementers, that's the private sector, to be able to put in the products and services that the end user will be able to access. It's only then that we'll say we'll have a well-working, a well-oiled system that will drive things for the better of the, well, let me use the words of the Reverend, the common man on the street. Thank you.
Yeah, talking about the man on the street getting his services reach out to a larger population, let's say locally here in Nigeria. I think recently we have this Nigerian broadband policy from which yet I can't remember the name. If such a policy is taken up and those who actually drive it, identify and get them to drive it, and then it is implemented. It's about ensuring that services get to everywhere. So when services get to everywhere, I think it will be a lot easier for everyone to get the services to reach those people who are now able to access digital services that they need to get, so that those selling the services can be able to reach them wherever they are. As it stands, we still have a large percentage of our population not still having access to these services.
Thank you very much. In our attempts to end, a politician who was once a governor was freed from the prison yard, and the first thing he admitted was that he never knew that prison was hellish. He had the opportunity to pardon a lot of people as a governor, but he never did that until he entered the prison yard. And the gentleman in the middle says, in Nigeria, we don't take a problem as a problem until it becomes glaring. Well, these are, I don't know how to defend that. But I also have heard in this hall some time ago that documentations are not a problem, because we have personally seen documents that have 350-page executive summary, to the main body. So having said this, ladies and gentlemen, permit us to fall out, as it were. Thank you very much.
If the executive summary runs into hundreds of pages, okay, so that means the main report itself will be in volumes. Thank you, Dr. Diego, for that, for making us laugh as you leave the stage here. Okay, so we will move quickly now. Last panel discussion. The way we have structured, and I just want to apologize that the rearrangement of the program was done purposely to kind of suit the mood, to ensure that we don't lose anything. And please, may I remind us that we should not forget to note our questions, observations, and comments that we would like to make. We are going to the last panel session, which is the fourth. As soon as we are done with that, we will go for lunch. And then we feel that it would be nice that while the food is digesting, we will have enough energy to engage all the papers and the discussions. So as soon as we are done with the fourth panel discussion, we will proceed to have lunch and then reconvene to take the questions and take the closing remarks. Thank you so much for your patience. It is my privilege and honor to invite my senior colleague, Deputy Director, Technical Standards and Network Integrity at NCC, Engineer Adeyemi Ogo, who will be moderating the next session to come up. Please, let's encourage him, Engineer Adeyemi Ogo. And we will invite in the following persons who will join him. Dr. David Itsabe, he was there earlier. I know he's still present. Is the leader of ISAN and is the general manager at EcoBank. Please encourage Dr. David Itsabe. Olamide Odene, please also join them. Olamide Odene. Thank you very much. And then Mr. Asha Cherry Allen, please join them, please. Thank you. Where's Mr. Allen? He was there earlier. Okay. Dr. Steve Bass is supposed to be here, but he's represented by Mr. Victor Emmanuel Kulu, who was also part of the panel that just left. Thank you. Please, let's encourage him to come up. Thank you so much. And this panel will be discussing USSD, vulnerabilities, threats, risk, and mitigations. As the other panel had, you have 30 minutes, sir, and I'm sure that you'll kill it in just 30 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon again, ladies and gentlemen. I know we've spent quite a lot of time here. We'll try and make this as engaging as possible. This session will focus on USSD, the vulnerabilities, threats, risks, and mitigations. So we have the panelists have already been introduced by the MC of this event. But basically, I'm sure we all use USSD in one way or the other. Most importantly, I know a lot of people use it for their banking transactions. It's one of the major areas that is compatible across all different device types in terms of mobile device types, whether it's you're using a smartphone or a feature phone. So you're able to utilize it for your financial transactions. Other uses, you're able to also utilize it for your recharge. Your recharge is airtime recharge. It's via the USSD channel. I'm sure recently with the NCC retrieval of your national identity numbers, you had the, I think it's *346# from your phone that you entered while you were registering for your NIN to retrieve your NIN. So you have that use. And you also have a lot of other use cases that USSD has been put to in Nigeria right now. Now, those use cases has made the utility of that particular channel for carrying out different types of transactions to increase very, very rapidly. And as such, it has also led to different threat actors targeting that particular channel to utilize to carry out their nefarious activities, whether it's to get into your bank account and wipe your account, which is some of the things that we've seen, or use it to also carry out a lot of other things. We'll go with the usual flow to let the panelists do justice to this particular topic. Like the last moderator said, I'm not allowed to have an opinion, obviously. So I'll let the panelists do marshal out the consensus opinion that may eventually come out from this discussion. So having said that, I would like to throw out the first question to to Dr. David Isiavi, correct?
That's correct.
Fantastic. All right. For USSD, what do we see really as the main vulnerabilities that are inherent in that particular channel for carrying out various transactions?
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. So I'll stand on existing protocols. The USSD service is one that is known universally to be weak in terms of security. Part of the reason is that even the primary protocol that supports the USSD service, which is the SS number 7, as the signaling system number 7, does not support encryption. What that means, therefore, is that you would have sensitive information like your password or your PIN transmitted in clear text. Okay, so that is the root of the problem with the USSD. Then in addition to that, the USSD service is plagued by various types of vulnerabilities, including weak communication. So because the platform is weak in terms of the communication protocols I've just mentioned, it is not subject to an attack like man in the middle. The man in the middle attack can easily be implemented on the USSD service. So whatever you're transmitting, there is a device trapping it, and then the hacker simply traps what you sent. And then if it is financial information, for instance, take like an account number and an amount, very quietly, it will change the account number, increase the amount, and then pass on the information. See, that's man in the middle. Nobody would know. And the details will get delivered at the other end successfully. And what do you have? A fraudulent transaction will happen. Okay. And then I also mentioned the weak signaling, protocol that supports the USSD. That also allows for spoofing attacks. So very simply, an attacker can instigate your phone to send a message which you don't know about, and the message will go, it will get delivered. And then I will stop here. There are many others, but there is the problem of even authentication or validation at the USSD end. The pins are not strong. For those who use USSD, you find out, you confirm that the USSD pin is typically 4 digits. That is not strong enough. And then when you are imputing the digits, they are not masks, they are not covered. So if let's assume your pin is 1, 2, 3, 4. As you're imputing the 1, 2, 3, 4, anybody behind you can easily see the digits. That's called shoulder stuffing, which is a form of social engineering attack. So these are the problems with the USSD, some of the problems. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Isiavi. That's a very elucidating explanation, I must say. So, Olamide, yes. Based on what the doctor has actually mentioned and the vulnerabilities associated with the USSD channel, what would you say are the threat points? Though I know he has highlighted a couple of them on how they could be utilized, but what do you say are the other threats that may be associated with those vulnerabilities that he has clearly articulated to the use of USSD for users, people that actually utilize USSD to carry out various transactions?
Thank you. So as the doctor has said, he's mentioned quite a lot of some of these weaknesses that we see with the USSD. In addition, I would also add insider threats. The reason why I say that is because even for the money network operators, any disgruntled staff could actually have access to some of this information. It's also possible that, some of the threat actors can also ensure that your feature phone, because you can't use it on a 4G network, for instance, that it's on a 2G or a 3G, they can force it for you to use on 2G and 3G networks. And that way gives them more access to all the information that you send across. I'm happy that he mentioned the pins. And like he said, they're very weak. It's just 4 digits. And it would actually take a very intelligent hacker less than 5 minutes to actually get your 4-digit pin. It's simple. There are a lot of software that and they swap the SIM. Now, it's interesting to know that, yes, mobile network providers have stepped up the game by sending a message to say your SIM is being swapped, but they send that same message to the same line that was stolen, not to an alternative number that you have provided. So if the SIM has been swapped already, the person already has access. And it's very simple. USSD codes, you just need to type in a code and it will give you the account or the bank that the owner of that line is using. And simple things like buying a recharge or buying recharge card for your phone can be done with no authentication whatsoever. So the bank doesn't know whether you're the one making the request or not. So that we see that a lot too. We also see things like social engineering attack that Dr. David had talked about. But this time around, it's just a telephone call. That's why awareness is very important. Digital literacy, I'm happy that that has also come up. It's very important for the feature phone users who don't have access to smartphones or don't understand what the technology is all about. Understand that if a person calls you to say, oh, we just sent a code to your phone, can we have that code back? It should raise a red flag. It should raise a red flag in your head, and then you don't give out that type of information. That's what they usually do. They would attempt, then your bank or there's an authentication code sent to you, and then they give you a call to tell you, oh, we need the codes back. And you also see things like fake alerts. It's funny, but they send an alert to you telling you an amount of money has been paid into your bank, and then they give you a call and they say, oh, it was an erroneous transfer, and they need you to please refund the money. In quotes, you can take a part of it, but refund it. Now, all you've seen on the phone is an alert. You can't go back to cross-check with your bank. So user awareness too is very important. I would like to stop there.
All right, thank you very much, Olamide. And you're welcome, Mr. Shathiri Alon. So, Dr. Steve, I'm sure you've heard of the vulnerabilities and the threats. Now, based on the various threat levels, and for some of the threats that she has mentioned, things, I think he mentioned vulnerability in terms of man-in-the-middle attack that could lead to people basically standing in the middle to intercept whatever communication is being sent between the user and the endpoint for the network. Spoofing, he mentioned, I think Olamide mentioned swapping, when phones are swapped, or alerts, fake alerts. Now, all these various threats and vulnerabilities that actually exist, based on the various levels and the risk levels, which do you think has the highest risk of actually happening, or which do you think may have the biggest impact and easiest, for example, to go up to implement by criminal actors?
Thank you, moderator. We have seen these things happening around. It's a very common, one of the commonest attacks on let me say, bank accounts of financial services. The commonest that have been happening that we have seen is the one that is related to SIM swap, and maybe people even, I think at the point, one of these boys that was caught said they no longer wait to swap SIMs again. They just go all out and rob people for their phones, but it's not the phones they are not interested in. It is the SIM that they are interested in. They don't need your phone. They have the way they can return your phone to you. What they need is a SIM. That is what is the real value they are looking for. So on that level, we can say that that is one of the ones that is likely to happen, and it has been happening on a very high scale, that people's phones are taken and all manner of transactions are done, just like that it was highlighted earlier. It is very easy for them once they have a grasp of the SIM. It's very easy for the other things to take place. And one thing I will say here very quickly is, I think the USSD is rendering services that I would suggest it shouldn't render. For instance, you just dial a code and then you get your BVN on the screen. I think that is going too far away from. I think some of these things should be taken down. That would be what I suggest. And just like your BVN, those things, I think there was a session here about PII. Those things that are PII, the USSD code shouldn't be able to display them on the screen, since these phones can be stolen, and whoever has the phone is you, who is the actual owner of the phone. And then again, we can go a step further to do more awareness on some of the things the USSD code can do. Somebody has taken hold of your phone over a weekend, but I do know that there is a code you can use from any other person's phone to deactivate your own account from access. And a lot of people don't know about that. So if awareness is done in that regard, I think a lot of people will know that, oh, my phone has been taken over the weekend. I think somebody close to me, it happened, and she had to wait until on a Monday to go to the bank and report. But if she had known, she can deactivate this from any other phone close to her. That would have been resolved. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Steve Bassey. I think we've gone through vulnerabilities, threats, and some of the risks, and in terms of the possibility and probability of those risks being occurring or being made to come to pass, and criminal actors taking advantage of that for their own criminal benefits. For Mr. Asha Alon, I think I'll go on similar area, all right, based on the experience. I would like you to look at all three areas, for example, on the vulnerability, threats, and the risk factors that may not have been highlighted by the other speakers. Please, go ahead.
So, first of all, good day. So definitely when we speak about USSD, people relate to the risk that we have, someone looking the code that we are typing, or someone will take our phone, and they keep forgetting that, first of all, the highest level of vulnerability is actually in the core level, okay? In the core level, they can actually see everything. It's transparent. So even if in the past USSD was considered to be more secure than an SMS, we know that it's not. And within the core, everything is transparent. Your account number, your PIN number. We can actually, when you're sitting in the core, we can see everything that you type on the USSD, okay? Base station as well. So if you sit next to the base station and you sniff information, I can have all the information that people are transferring via the base station. I don't even need to have access to your phone, okay? Of course, the phone and the SIM, that's the basic ones. We can actually address and have solutions, okay, implement. And even on feature phones, we need to take in consideration that roughly 50–60% of the population is still using the feature phones. And if we implement application via the SIM toolkit. Okay, so this application via the SIM toolkit can actually create encryption. That this encryption, which will be decrypted on the other side, suddenly makes USSD way more secured, even though it's still on a feature phone, even still it's on this basic way of communication. And it's just a matter of the MNOs implementing those solutions via the SIM toolkit that can be integrated within the SIM. So once I put the SIM card in the phone, automatically the SIM toolkit has been installed. And then even all the transactions of the USSD are encrypted. And at least on that point, if someone is not actually taking my phone, so on the core level, on the BTS level, we're fully secure.
All right, thank you very much. I think you've delved into some of the solutions already. I'll come back to Dr. Isiavi on the aspect of looking at solutions now, since we clearly understand a couple of the vulnerabilities, the threats, and the risks. So what are some of these solutions? Because I know in addressing some of these risks and vulnerabilities, I know there are certain solutions, like I think you mentioned one, where if there's a stolen phone and the phone is swapped, or a SIM swap, fraudulent SIM swap, I think there was some arrangements of the mobile network operator sending those notifications to NIBS, and NIBS able to distribute that to the respective banks to know that this has happened and those transactions are blocked. I know there are a couple of those, but I'll leave it for the panel to see if there are other solutions that you are aware of. So Dr. Isiavi, how are we looking at, or what do you think can be done to actually to address some of this? I know Mr. Alon had mentioned one, which is the deployment of the SIM toolkit on the SIM, all right, which works across all phone types. So what other things can actually be done to safeguard those information flows from the mobile device all the way to the endpoint at the bank?
All right, thank you very much. There's a general saying that a journey of 1,000 miles, right, starts with one step. So the question is, first of all, that's 1,000 miles you want to travel to. What is the objective? All right, the end result must always be in mind. So general comment I'd like to make first on this is that this subject has been discussed over and over and over in the past 4, 5, 6 years. However, we are still where we are. The reason we are still where we are is because of the economics, cost, benefit analysis. It's not as if the industry does not know what to do. Solutions, at least some solutions can be recommended. But if you look at the cost of implementing those solutions and juxtapose them against the benefit, the economics don't add up. So that's why the USSD platform is still as weak as it is. So one simple recommendation for a start would be mask the pins and passwords on the USSD platform. At least that will cut out the social engineering attacks of people seeing pins and passwords of users. That's number one. Secondly, increase the number of digits. Instead of 4, that's length, that's field, should be made minimum 6, 8, or 12, as the case may be. The longer the string, the more secure it is. That's a basic rule in information security or cybersecurity. Okay, so increase the number of digits for the PIN, for the password. But 4 is too low, too weak. I think one of the speakers here said, it's very easy to crack a 4-digit PIN. That's true. For every additional increase, you need an exponential level of energy, of work to be able to decrypt and know it or guess it, all right? Then there's an issue of encryption. I think last week I was the one to mention it. With encryption, you can never go wrong. So the data or traffic from the telephones to the base stations should be encrypted. Once that is done, you cut out the man in the middle. Every man in the middle attack is possible because of clear text, something you can easily see. But if it is encrypted and the device is put there to trap the traffic, you are trapping garbage. So you put it back in, it's garbage that you put in, because even the hash will change and all of that. So once you do that encryption, it helps a lot, that it cuts out certain forms of attack. And then what we can also look at is to strengthen the input validation side of things. Because today, even though we say that the USSD platform or service is weak, there is still some level of input validation. So if you type, for instance, you know, I was introduced as general manager of EcoBank. We have a USSD string *326 hash. Type it in, it gives you the array of services. Now, those array of services, so that array of services have serial numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, typically up to 9. If you type 10 as a response, or if you type A as a response, it will tell you invalid input. We cannot process. Try again later. You see, so there's some level of security, some minimal level on USSD platform. But it's important to strengthen that level of input validation to ensure that anytime garbage goes in, garbage must come out. All right. And then at the back end, the server side of things, there are a number of security measures that can be taken there as well. You know, hardening the servers, ensure that the data that is stored is encrypted. So data at rest is encrypted. Ensure that your servers have, you know, some security monitoring tools like a SIEM, right? You know, security information and event management. There are different types of SIEMs, you know, that, you know, can be implemented on the server side. So, and then there is online monitoring. And of course, there is replication of the data to ensure that if there is an attack and one set of data and services go down, automatically you have another one, you know, firing up and the service is up and running within a short period of time. So there are a number of, you know, these measures that can be put in place to further secure the USSD service. However, we must remember the objective and the cost of that implementation. So every time you look at that cost and you see minimal transactions being done, you say, wait a minute, is it really wise to invest so much? So let's continue to run the way we are, you know, until things change significantly. All right.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
Same question to you, Shalabde.
All right, thank you. I'm a very big fan of awareness, so I'm going to start with that. There's something called trying to build the human firewall. You know, the human remains the strongest and the weakest link. So I will still stress on awareness. We need to do a lot of user education so that everybody is aware of what is available. And I'm happy that, you know, a lot of banks are doing a lot of that now, you know, trying to push as hard as they can through various channels, even coming up with indigenous languages so that you understand the importance of that. So it's very important that we look at user education and try to build the human into, you know, a firewall. Doctor also mentioned, you know, putting in place, that's at the back end, things like a monitoring tool or a monitoring system where you can actually detect a few of these things. So peradventure, you see something that is not regular with a particular customer, you can wait to actually authenticate or validate before you go ahead. So that's also something that I would talk about. I would also like to talk about collaborative efforts that should also be put in place. Outside the people, let's look at the processes, you know, and then we can rely on technology. So we must do a lot of collaborations and partnerships to see how we can further secure the USSD platform. And I'm happy, like I keep saying, I'm happy some of these things, we're beginning to see them. But like I said, it's not working in the right direction. So telcos, please, I know you're here. I've said something that, you know, I've used to indict you guys a little bit. So you need to really strengthen and work on that end. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Doctor, please. Same question, solutions.
Yeah, I think a lot of solutions have been suggested. I will go the direction of the regulation. As you can see, the use case as it has to do with USSD is much more on the financial transactions than any other place. Because even the charge card vending, airtime vending hits the bank eventually. So I will go the direction of regulation in as much as doctors say the cost benefit analysis have to come in place, and that has to be one of the basis for the decision. It would be good if the CBN, who is the umpire here in the financial services sector, would come in and insist on strengthening some of these variables, for instance, encryption. If I think in the framework for USSD, they actually have they talk about encryption, but whether that is enforced or not is what remains there. And I think it boils back to the cost benefit analysis. But then here we keep losing at individual basis and it backs back to the economy. So I think that cost benefit analysis should be stepped down so that CBN can enforce the regulation on some of those things that will strengthen USSD transaction. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Alon, I know you've given one solution earlier with respect to the STK. Are there any other solutions that you may envisage that may actually help in addressing some of these vulnerabilities?
Yeah, well, actually, there are two solutions that we can implement. One can be more annoying to the end user, okay? To correlate the USSD or to the SIM card to a specific phone. Each phone has its IMEI, and if the core is receiving now a USSD from my number, but not from my phone, not from the same IMEI, it's blocked, okay? And so correct, so when I want to change my phone, I need maybe to go to the service center and declare that I have a new phone, or it can be done in a different automated way. But still, this is a way to counterattack sending of USSD from, let's say, replicated SIM card. Okay. Regarding regulation, that we can say, look, regulation go and enforce. Okay. So regulation might come with new regulations and with penalties and so on, that if you don't, it can be also done from the other way around, that the regulation will set guidelines and the MNO will receive incentives on high levels of implementation. And by that, you're actually taking the MNO and making him the driver of this activity, because he will get a certain incentive that he will be interested in. So this is also another idea that can be developed.
Yeah, sure, please go ahead.
Right, thank you. One more thing that I wanted to just add is the fact that the regulators have actually issued, at least from the banking and financial systems perspective, there is a robust regulation in place guiding the provision of USSD services to customers. One thing that the central bank officers have seen, the central bank regulators, what they've indicated, and which is a mandate to the banking industry, is that you limit transactions from the USSD to a small amount, smallest amount of transactions actually in that space. Okay, so maximum value of USSD transaction and the maximum amount of USSD transaction that can be done in a day. The reason is that USSD service is used to a large extent by a lot of the people at the lower level of society, those who do not have smartphones, right, that can go onto the web and so forth. At least they have phones that can also connect to the financial services and still get service. Through the USSD, there's a long array of products and services that can be accessed without internet access, all right? That's USSD. So the value is small and total number of transactions and amount, especially that you can do in a single day, is also limited. So banks all know that if you allow anyone to exceed that, and there is a problem, the regulators will not even listen to you. You must refund the money to the customers immediately. So that is a practice. Everybody knows it. So for now, the space is, the risk there is being properly managed to that extent. All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. I think the panel had actually gone through some of the vulnerabilities, the threats, risks, and some of the mitigations. I'm sure a couple of the vulnerabilities that was highlighted had to do with the fact that a lot of the information sent are in plain text, so they're not encrypted. The lack of awareness is making people, users, susceptible to falling prey to some of these issues. And of course, based on this plain text or lack of encryption in the USSD channel, we're having possibilities for man-in-the-middle attacks, for people to be able to spoof, phish, and of course also be able to carry out swapping of your phones to be able to carry out these activities. Now the panel mentioned a couple of those risks and the threats and vulnerabilities and gave solutions, which is really the most important thing. And some of the solutions that is basically being driven in terms of consideration for their implementation. They are underpinned by the cost-benefit analysis that is being envisaged or has been assessed by the industry players that are meant to implement some of those solutions. And some solutions that was highlighted by the panel is the masking of the pins at the very least and the passwords, increasing lengths of the pins, encryption by deploying SDKs to the SIM cards. So the encryption can actually happen on that particular applet on the SIM before transmission to remove the vulnerability of the plain text in the network. Input validation, strengthening awareness, user education, which is very, very critical. And I think I must dare say that for the user education, one of the ways to address the SIM swapping is try and put a password in your SIM. So even if your SIM is stolen, the person will need to guess your password with 3 tries maximum. SIM lock, yes. All right, it's very important. If your phone is stolen, if you don't have a SIM lock, right, a SIM lock on your SIM card, activate it. So if your phone is stolen, whoever steals it can only guess your password 3 times. And if he gets it wrong the 3rd time, that's the end. It locks the phone, locks the SIM. Right, it's very important. And we also looked at customer behavior analysis, collaboration between the various parties, between regulators, between the various value chain players for the delivery that utilize that USSD channel, appropriate regulation and implementation of those regulations, and of course, some of the solutions that you also see that to tie the SIM, for example, to the phone set itself. So when a transaction is being sent out, the phone that is actually sending out the ID for the phone sending that transaction, that ID is also sent as part of that transaction. So we're able to tell if the transaction is actually coming from the initial user. Of course, lastly, there was the aspect that has to do with the limitation of the transaction amount as well as transaction volumes that has already been implemented for the USSD channel. So on that note, I would like to thank the panel for your very lucid explanations and providing some good highlights and clarity to the issues that surround USSD and preferring solutions also to these issues. So I would like, please, the audience to kindly help me to thank the panel and the staff. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please, can we give the panel a round of applause, please? Kindly step forward so you take the panel photograph. directors here present, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. We have concluded the fourth session. However, we will leave now and proceed for lunch. And when we return, we will be doing the closing ceremony, which is to take the question and answers, which I know that people have noted copiously, and then take the closing remarks from the Director, New Media and Information Security. I'm sure we can have a good lunch in just 40 minutes. Food is served. May we rise for lunch. Thank you so much. Thank you. Please, panelists and directors here present, your lunch is served at the upper floor. But I also see how it goes.
I really do trust that.
I wanted to tell you something for quite some time. I think
proper answers to the questions that will be raised. So please, if you have a question that you want to ask, or you've written out and you want to ask, please can you signify by the raise of your hand so we can get across to you. If you're online also, let us know the question that you have so that they can be attended to. Thank you. Is there anyone here that has a question? Can you signify by a raise of your hand? Okay. I want to believe that the lunch was sumptuous. And what I'm seeing, okay, you have a question. Thank you very much. A round of applause for him. Okay, I have two persons. Okay. Very quickly, I will come to you and you ask your question. So in no particular order, the panelists who are still here, the questions that you can respond to, you do well to call our attention so that we'll get to you, the microphone, and you provide the answer. Thank you. Please tell us who you are and your question.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. John, what is the name? Representing ISOC by capacity, the research person as well. The question I'm going to ask now, I was supposed to ask it yesterday, but somehow because of the timing, they flew past that setup. But during the panel session for Dr. Mbaneso on 5G, we are talking of cybersecurity here. I remember vividly, that was 2017. There was a training that was organized for engineers and the likes, different companies, telcos. And that training was for a migration from IPv4 to IPv6. And we're talking about cybersecurity here. One of the greatest threats to our cyberspace is IPv4. Those of us that have used it will understand what I'm saying. Because anybody can pick on any IP address and that's it. And so after that training and everything, hands-on, the knowledge was gotten, and there was that assurance from the authorities then. I remember, I think Dr. Al-Hassan, if I'm not mistaken, was there representing the EVC then, and Dr. Teniola, Mr. Teniola. Now my question is this: we're heading towards 5G, and from what I've seen from the policy document on ground, there is no definite statement or infrastructure on ground for to show that there has been a migration from IPv4 to IPv6. What will I say the authorities, what are they doing or what have they done? Which infrastructure is on ground to ensure that IPv6 has been deployed and is in use to ensure that there's no breach in our cyberspace? That's my question. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. What is the infrastructure on the ground to ensure the migration of, okay, I'll come back to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. John. This is a short answer. All modern equipment manufactured today support both IP version 6 and version 4. That's all.
Mr. John, does that answer your question? Okay, maybe you know the answer. Okay.
Hello, let me just give an attempt at the questions you have asked. In terms of IP version 6, when the service providers are ready, there is economic basis for it and business justification for it, they will do that. And that is because today, how many users know whether they are using IP version 4 or not? I said, how many users, not with technical users, who knows classes of IP address, all those things? You understand? Very few, they don't know. Our phone, our computers, all those things. You understand now? So whether it's IP version 4 is deployed or IP version 6 is deployed, users will not know. But the service providers, for example, like MTN, if it's deploying IP version 6 on its network, then users will just be seeing it, you know, and everything will be working. So the question will actually be at the service provider's end. But what I can say is that the African Network Internet Corporation, AFRINIC, they are doing a lot, you know, at least in the educational area to ensure that engineers are well trained, technical people are well trained, which is the starting point, you know. So what we can now try to do is to see how we can extend it, especially to the public sector, you know, because if it's the private sector will get it, you know, when these things, IoT, every of these things begin to be used. But for the government side, you actually need highly competent people who can ensure that government networks, you know, are compliant and, you know, the needfuls are done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. You still have a...
Hello.
Okay, thank you. There is a myth that IPv4 is not secure and IPv6 is what is secure. Sorry, my name is Sunday Folayon. I had the fortune of being a past chairman of AFRINIC and a board member of AFRINIC for about 12 years. So I understand what I am saying very well. So there's a myth that IPv4 is not secure. IPv6 is what is secure. Absolutely not true. I like the way Chief put it. Dual stack equipment are able to run V4 or V6 depending on what is supplied. End users don't need to know whether they're running on V4 or V6. Just like we're in this hall now, can you please tell me, are we running on NEPA or we are running on generator? Absolutely, you cannot know. It is the one the hotel switches for us. So whether it's V4 or V6, the internet will run. It is the ability of the operators to make money from it that will influence how quickly they move to V6 from V4. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. A round of applause for the... I said a round of applause. Only 2 persons clapped. So you have a question?
My name is Ali Al-Kali from NCC, New Media and Information Security Department. My question is about 5G. Did 5G have any link regards to health?
Did 5G has any link with health?
Hello. Hello, can I attempt to
I think that we attempted that question during the actual discussion. And my position and something there is that it does not have explicit link to health. But if you want to know whether it has explicit link, then you must do research, you must conduct research
on it. And that usually will take time. That means we must be running the 5G. Then we now have to now conduct that, research over a period of time to know that even at that, it's still going to be very complicated, because if somebody now have cancer and you say the cancer is due to 5G, what about where there's no 5G and people still have cancer? So there is a whole lot that we have to look at in that regard, not a situation where we just feel that 5th generation network has impact on health, like people were saying COVID-19, this and that and all those kind of something. That is the first thing that, those are the things that we need to know fundamentally, not just hypothesizing. But as a scholar, you know that there are ways you do things that are scholarly. If I say certain things is happening in this region, then I must conduct research. I must do tests over a period of time, especially when it involves human beings, And to me, talking technologically from the 5G perspective, which is spectrum, you know that you have ionized and the non-ionized one. So if it is in the ionized one, then we can be talking about the impact and all those. If it's non-ionized one, and this question was done as 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, and many of the other ones that way, But if you also look at the fact that whether it is not 5G, let us say today, you have antenna designs, or you have something, and the human being now go where there is heat being generated. Of course, it's going to have some impact on Earth, but not necessarily because it is 5G or it is 4G. I'm talking about even the television antenna that you put on something, you now go very close to it. So the truth of the matter is that as a technology, it does not. That is my perception. And for you to tell me that it has, then it will be provable. There might be scientific basis for it, which we have not had the opportunity of experiencing now because it has not been deployed. So how can you now say it has upfront ab initio? Thank you.
Hello, can I attempt to answer that too? Hello? Hello?
I need to add a comment to that. There is
Sorry, Dr. Kenneth online is trying to draw your attention.
Hello. Good evening once again. Can you hear me?
The National Commission of Non-Ionized Radiation Protection, all these bodies indicated that there is any proof of any link between 5G and health. So, and the standards the commission or any country is following is the standards developed by or identified by these three organizations. Thank you. Addition?
Hello.
Please. Maybe you raise your hand electronically, Dr. Ken.
Okay.
Use the electronic button.
Sure.
Listen to the one we have here, then we'll go back to the one online.
Thank you. My addition, I was actually going to quote the organizations that Engineer Haru mentioned, but since he said it, it's okay. I always look at man-machine interactions, and I always tell myself that it's important for people to be able to distinguish between what is fact and what is conspiracy theory. It's your own responsibility to go ahead and ask yourself, this thing that they are saying, can it be scientifically proven? When has it been proven? Has anybody, anywhere in the world, made that scientifically, that direct link? If it hasn't, it has never happened. It's not now going to happen in Nigeria. We haven't deployed 5G here. We're already scared of it. People who have tested, some countries who have deployed, we haven't seen any link. So why have we all now gotten roasted? I remember when GSM started in Nigeria, there's this story that if you keep the phone too close to your head, that your brain will fry up. And I don't know how many people their brains are fried up till now. So let's be able to distinguish between what is fact and what is conspiracy theory. That responsibility is ours, not somebody else's. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can we give opportunity to the person online to ask the question?
Okay. Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Good evening.
Okay, so my name once again is Kenneth Okerafo. I am very sympathetic to that question because it has really generated a lot of talk over the years. Are there health concerns over 5G? The answer is yes, there are concerns, but are those concerns true? Those are the things that we need to talk about. The first thing is that misconception about health implications and 5G arose as a result of lack of awareness. People do not have the right information and therefore they speculate. What is the right information? There is a spectrum, there is a layer called the electromagnetic spectrum, which consists of energy, electromagnetic waves in different frequencies. Some are high frequency and some are low frequency. The ones that are low frequency can be used for certain applications, and the ones for high frequency are used for certain applications. The frequency ranges that are used for 5G do not belong to the range that can ionize. What is the meaning of ionization? Ionization is the disintegration of a cell due to radiation of energy. That energy coming from the spectrum is coming with very high frequency. But because of the range that has been selected for 5G, it cannot ionize. The ionizing waves are things like gamma rays, beta rays, or even X-rays, and that's why they are used for certain medical imaging. To that extent, I also want to talk about use and application. I usually give this analogy. If you have a gun, that gun can be used to kill. It can also be used to protect. A gun in the hand of a policeman is different from a gun in the hand of a robber. It depends on standard. It depends on what you use it for. And therefore, how the standard is applied by manufacturers and electronic vendors to produce these antenna and all the devices capable of doing 5G really matters. The International Telecommunication Union has set the standards, and therefore, it is the duty of vendors around the world to comply with those standards. Finally, at the national level, regulators like NCC or policymakers like the National Information Technology Development Agency, NIDA, they have a responsibility as well to enforce that these standards are used. It's only when vendors use the right equipment and do the right installation, getting the right equipment, and then when people are aware of the implications, that's when the misconception is gone. Because people can only speculate when the information is not passed on to them. So to that extent, I want to submit that the fears that are being exercised as a result of health implications and 5G, most of them are unfounded, and it's because of lack of information. So if the necessary authorities are able to do the right things, now that Nigeria is working towards rolling out 5G, then the fears will be allayed and we are on our way to enjoy the benefits of 5G, including low latency, high frequency, number of concurrent applications, and so on and so forth. I thank you for the attention.
Thank you very much, sir. We also have a management staff of the commission that also wants to make a comment. Please, can you put her on? Can you hear us, ma? She's not responding.
She's muted.
She's muted. Please, ma, can you unmute yourself so you can hear us? Unfortunately, we are not able to connect with her. In the absence of any other comments or questions, we would have to move to the next item on the program for today. Before I call the Director of New Media and Information Security for a vote of thanks, I have been directed to inform us that there is need for us to provide contact information so that we can have interface with the CSAT. And so as stakeholders, we need your contact information through which we can interface with you. And so at the end of this program, as you're going out towards the door, you would please help us to provide your contact information with which we can use to interface. Like in one of the presentations that was made here, the CSAT cannot work effectively except there are people we interface with. I think that is very important. From the submissions that have been made, it shows that we have a responsibility to create the necessary awareness about the misconceptions about 5G. Now that we know, we should be ambassadors of the advantage of 5G deployment. And I hope that one of the reasons for this conference is such that such knowledge could be shared. Thank you. On this note, I want to call on the Director of New Media, Dr. Al-Hassan Haru, for a vote of thanks. A round of applause for him, please. You're welcome, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I wish to stand on the existing protocol established. We now come to the end of this program. Good evening, distinguished guests. I have the honor and privilege to give this vote of thanks. I would like to thank our hardworking and innovative Honorable Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Professor Isa Ali Ibrahim Pantami, who was able to come to the first part of the program that was conducted yesterday. I also wish to thank the Senate and House committee members, some of them who were here yesterday. I also wish to thank the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy. Zoe was not able to attend the event, but I got his goodwill message through his special assistant this morning. Also, the Chairman, Board of Commissioners of the NCC, Executive Vice Chairman, Nigerian Communication Commission, the commissioners, board members, directors, and members of the staff of the Nigerian Communications Commission for gracing us with your presence. Additionally, I would like to thank all stakeholders, the mobile network operators, internet service providers, Office of the National Security Advisor, which was also fully represented, agencies under the Federal Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy, especially NIDA, also fully represented, NCC, and others. Also for honoring our invitation and participating in this event. We thank them all. More so, I would like to thank and appreciate all distinguished guests, moderators, panelists, and the participants for their various participation and making this unique event a big success. Finally, I'm thankful to the working teams, planning committees, and the NCC CSAT team that worked tirelessly in putting this event together. Your contribution is highly, highly appreciated. As you travel back to your various destinations, on behalf of the Executive Vice Chairman, Nigerian Communications Commission, and the entire staff of NCC, I wish you safe travels. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, sir. I think that vote of thanks deserves another round of applause. Thank you so much for being part of this event. As I most respectfully urge us to stand for us to take the national anthem as we close. The first stanza of the national anthem. Please do not forget to share your contact with us at the door as you leave. At the count of three, we'll take the national anthem. 1, 2, 3. Rise, O compatriots, Nigeria's call obey to serve our fatherland with love and strength and faith. The labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain. To serve with heart and mind, one nation bound in freedom, peace and unity. Thank you very much for coming. I wish you a safe journey back. Thank you for coming.
Oh, why now?